The town of Willow Creek was small and quiet. It was nestled beside a forest that seemed to stretch forever. The trees in the forest were old. Some were so big that their trunks were like the walls of a house. The townsfolk knew the forest was a place of secrets. They rarely spoke of it. And they never went in, especially not at night. There were stories about the forest, stories whispered around campfires and late at night, stories that made your skin crawl. The forest was more than just trees. It was alive. It held ancient magic and whispered forgotten secrets. The people of Willow Creek knew the forest held a power. They respected it, they feared it, and they avoided it at all costs. Old Man Withers lived on the edge of town. He had a rickety old house that creaked in the wind. It was said he knew more about the forest than anyone else. Old Man Withers would tell stories about the forest. He spoke of lost souls wandering beneath the trees. He told of whispers that could drive you mad, and he warned of a darkness that lurked within. The children of Willow Creek would listen to his stories with wide eyes. They shivered with fear and excitement, but they never dared to enter the forest, not after hearing Old Man Withers' tales. There were 4 friends, Mark, Jessica, David and Emily. They were always looking for adventure, and they didn't believe Old Man Withers' stories. Not really. One night they made a dare to enter the forest, a dare to spend the entire night there. They wanted to prove that the stories were just stories. They wanted to be brave. The night was foggy when they met at the edge of the woods. The air was thick with the smell of damp earth and pine needles. They could hear the rustle of leaves in the wind, and they thought they saw shadows moving between the trees. They plunged into the forest. The trees closed around them like iron bars. The last rays of sunlight were swallowed by the dense canopy. The air grew colder, and the fog seemed to press in on them, smothering their courage. Emily tripped over a root. She cried out. The others huddled around her. Their hearts pounded in their chests. "It's just a root," David said. But his voice trembled. He was scared too. They continued on, deeper and deeper into the heart of the forest. Section 5. The Silence of the Forest. The forest was silent, too silent. The only sounds were the beating of their own hearts and the rasping of their breath. The fog seemed to muffle even the sound of their footsteps. They felt eyes on them, watching them. But whenever they turned to look, there was nothing there. Just the swirling fog and the silent trees. "I don't like this," Jessica whispered. "We should go back," Mark said, but they didn't go back. They were too scared to move. Section 6. The Altar in the Clearing. They stumbled into a clearing. The fog thinned here. In the center of the clearing stood an ancient stone altar. It was covered in strange symbols. The symbols seemed to glow faintly in the darkness. As they approached the altar, they felt a presence. It was ancient and powerful. It filled them with a sense of dread. Emily reached out and touched one of the symbols. As soon as her fingers made contact, the ground began to tremble. Section 7. Godzilla Awakens. The earth split open. With a deafening roar, a colossal creature rose from the depths. It was Godzilla. His scales gleamed like obsidian in the moonlight. His eyes burned with an inner fire. The teenagers were frozen in terror. They had never seen anything like it. Godzilla was the stuff of legends, of nightmares, and he was standing right before them. Godzilla surveyed the clearing with a sweeping glance. He had sensed a disturbance in his domain. He had been awakened. Section 8. Guardian of the Forest. The fog around them swirled and pulsed. Dark shapes began to emerge from the trees, whispering forms with glowing eyes and grasping claws. These were the lost souls, the things that haunted the forest. Godzilla roared again. His atomic breath cut through the darkness, scattering the shadowy figures. They shrieked and dissipated, drawn back into the depths of the forest. The teenagers watched in awe and terror as Godzilla drove away the darkness. He was their protector, the guardian of the forest. Section 9. The Walk Back. The ground stopped shaking. The fog slowly cleared. Godzilla turned his ancient gaze upon the teenagers. He studied them for a long moment. Then, with a grunt, he vanished back into the earth. The teenagers stood there for a long time. The silence of the forest had returned, but it no longer felt threatening. It felt peaceful, protected. They made their way out of the forest. As they emerged into the early morning light, they knew their lives were forever changed. They had looked into the heart of darkness, and they had found something incredible. They had found Godzilla, the guardian of the ancient woods,